Welcome back to part 2 of chapter 18. When we look at the female body system, we look, one of the main things that goes on in the ovary is ovulation. Now, realize that the egg doesn't travel around like this, but it starts in one area and goes through all these stages. So this is the ovary, and all the follicles that a female has, you're born with it. It's not like sperm where you have millions produced every other day, but you are born with the eggs you have. As the pituitary releases follicle stimulating hormone, it will cause the follicles to grow. So as they grow, they will start, don't worry about all the stages, just realize that they develop into more cells. And then when it gets to the area where this fluid-filled center, and then there's the nucleus at the end with this zone around it, this is what a mature egg looks like. Then on the 14th day, there is a spike in luteinizing hormone, and that will cause ovulation to happen. And when ovulation happens, the egg part leaves and leaves behind this mature follicle. And then this mature follicle turns in what's called the corpus luteum. Now, the corpus luteum is very important because it will secrete progesterone, and that progesterone helps to maintain the uterine lining. So this way, if the uterus is ready in case the egg is fertilized. Okay, so these are the things that go on in the ovary. The egg is starting to develop, ovulation at day 14, and then the corpus luteum is there for a while, and then it degenerates if pregnancy doesn't happen. And as it degenerates, the level of progesterone drops, and this is what causes menstruation. If there's no implantation within the first few days, the uterine lining will begin to degenerate, and the woman will have her period, and with that, the egg is swept out with menstrual flow. The corpus luteum will then become old and eventually disappear. This is a very complicated table, but let's break it down little by little. So here we have follicle stimulating hormone starting the development of the follicle. At day 14, both follicle stimulating hormone spikes a little, but there's this huge spike in luteinizing hormone. Remember that the luteinizing hormone comes from the pituitary gland. So this causes ovulation. Now, as the follicle starts to develop, the follicle itself will produce estrogen. And the estrogen will spike, and then it spikes again. The whole function of estrogen is to start the preparation of the uterine lining, and then help maintain the uterine lining. When we look at the uterine lining, this is really a deceptive diagram because it looks like the endometrium is massive, and it really isn't that thick. But as the uterine lining develops, as the follicle develops, the uterine lining develops. The first day of the cycle is based on menstruation. And notice it's actually menstruation if you're spelling it right, but we usually don't pronounce the R for some reason. So usually the first 1 to 5 days of the cycle is when menstruation occurs. Then the lining develops. If there's no implementation of the egg, the progesterone and estrogen levels drop, and menstruation occurs. So this is really quite a complicated process. I just want you to get the basics right now, so this way you kind of know what's going on. But it is very complicated. And it's all controlled by hormones. So you have the hypothalamus, the pituitary, and they control both the functions of the ovary, and then the hormones from the ovary, the estrogen and the progesterone, control the uterine lining. Okay, 4 of them, we talked about that. And all of this is controlled by the hypothalamus, which releases gonadotrophin releasing hormone, which we talked about that before. So here is our hormones. Okay. And it's the decreasing levels of progesterone and estrogen which give the premenstrual syndrome symptoms, and also the decreased level of progesterone will release the hypothalamus from its inhibitory effects and will cause cause follicle stimulating hormone to occur. Now, if pregnancy results, the fertilized egg will eventually secrete a hormone called human chorionic gonadotropin, and this is the pregnancy test hormone. Also, this will stimulate the corpus luteum to continue secreting progesterone until the placenta develops long enough to secrete these. Okay. Yeah. When there is nursing and suckling can also inhibit the hypothalamus. So this is where they say the hypothalamus, nursing can act as a birth control, but don't count on it. The suckling of a child will also stimulate the hypothalamus to release oxytocin, which also encourages lactation. Okay, the male anatomy, it's a little easier. Sperm are produced, sperm are the primary genitalia, which is produced in the testes. And then the male genitalia is all external. So when we look at it, here we have the testes, and the testes have to be down in the scrotum to maintain a temperature that is less than body temperature for the effective development of sperm. What I want you to realize is there's this vas deferens is a long tube, and that's because the testes start development up in the abdomen, and before birth they descend. Sperm is developed in the testes. It is then stored in the epididymis, and when it is time for it to release and move during ejaculation, it moves along the vas deferens. It picks up fluid creating semen by the seminal vesicles. So the seminal vesicles will pump in seminal fluid. Then the prostate gland will also put in some fluid. And the third gland is the bulbourethral gland. So it looks tricky, but if you look at its bulbourethra, so it's the bulb by the urethra, that is the gland that puts in a little more fluid. Okay, and then you have the penis, and the penis is full of ejectile material to fill with blood and gorge during an erection. So as I say, you have testes, and inside the testes are lobules of seminiferous tubules, and it's in these seminiferous tubules where the sperm begin to grow. And there's also Sertoli cells. Okay. The penis itself, during erection, has 3 erectile bodies, which are spongy like networks where blood fills up. And we'll talk about that next. We talked about the epididymis, which is a place for storage. The vas deferens is a transport tube. Then there are 3 accessory glands, the seminal vesicles, which will add fluid, the prostate gland, which continues to add fluid, and the bulbourethral gland, which also adds a little mucus. So you have fluid, which contains sugar for the sperm to live with. You've got a pH counteractor, so it's an alkaline solution to help decrease the pH of the uterus. And then you have some mucus to help lubricate and make it move. Spermatogenesis is a little complicated, but not really. So the sperm are created in these seminiferous tubules. In between the seminiferous tubules are these tissues called interstitial tissues. The interstitial cells are the cells that release testosterone, and the testosterone will then also help in sperm development. Notice that the sperm is very small and streamlined. You've got a head with some enzymes on the tip of it to help it get to the egg. The middle piece full of mitochondria for energy, and also the seminal fluid has a lot of sugar in it in order to feed that mitochondria. And then there's the tail at the end, which helps in motility. Okay. Male secondary sex characteristics. These are the effects that testosterone have on the male body. And this is body and facial hair and pubic hair growth, the deepening of the voice because the larynx grows and gets increased, and then there's also the increased muscle and bone mass. Good. As the sperm and the chemicals travel through the ejaculatory duct, they pass through the prostate gland where more fluid is added. This helps liquefy the semen and protects the sperm from the acid environment of the vagina by secreting an alkaline substance. The semen then passes by the bulbal urethra gland, which adds mucus, and then the semen will enter the urethra, and then it's carried outside the body. Pregnancy occurs when the sperm and egg are united and then get implanted, and it usually takes about 40 weeks for pregnancy. We're not going to go into much detail here. Just want you to realize that when it comes to the process, there is basically 4 stages of pregnancy, of labor. You've got your first stage, which is dilation. Your uterine muscles begin to contract, moving the fetus down to the cervix, and the cervix starts to dilate. The second stage is expulsion, where the cervix is dilated to 10 centimeters and the fetus starts the delivery and the head comes out. And then the third stage is the placenta stage, where the placenta or the afterbirth comes out. And here it is diagrammed. There's all sorts of information on contraceptive. I will let you go through that, and also the different diseases. I would like you to read them over so this way you're aware of them, but we don't need to know them for this test. Thank you.